What happens when your boss sends you a sexually explicit photo late at night, off the clock? You reported he's fired, but then the court tells you it wasn't harassment? Today, we are talking about Atalla v. Rite Aid, a sexual harassment case that was dismissed, even though there was plenty of evidence to back up the claim. By the end of this video, you'll understand how the law views sexual harassment when it comes to texting inappropriate photos, why personal communications after hours often don't rise to the level of harassment, and what that means for employees dealing with real workplace issues. If you've ever wondered what the law really says about sexual harassment, this video is for you. Hi, I'm Harlow Reed, employment lawyer, HR consultant, and creator of the HR Insider. And on this channel, I do more than share legal opinions. I break down real cases to show how the law might apply to your workplace. Whether you're an employee trying to protect your rights or an employer who's just trying to do things the right way. Atalla v. Rite Aid. Guys, this is a case that truly raised a lot of eyebrows. And it's not that there was no harassment, it's that the law didn't see it that way. And that's what makes this case so important to understand. Experiencing harassment at work can be one of the most bone-chilling experiences that an employee can go through. And it's not just about the inappropriate behavior itself. Employees often feel completely caught off guard, confused about what's happening. They don't know what to do, and especially how to get justice when they've been wronged. The case we're talking about today is one of those situations where justice was pursued not just because of the harassment, but because of the deep personal trust that was broken. And when someone you trust violates that trust, it cuts differently. It makes you question everything you thought you knew about that relationship. If you've ever found yourself in a situation like that, I want you to know you're not alone. This happens far more often in workplaces than people like to admit. The sad truth is, some harassers play the long game. They build trust, learn your vulnerabilities, and then cross the line. And that's exactly why I do these videos, to help employees understand what steps they can take when someone crosses that line, and to help employers, especially small business owners, better understand their legal obligations and responsibilities to prevent this from happening. In fact, I've created a full playlist of real workplace harassment cases, plus training that walks you through employer responsibilities and how employees can file complaints the right way. Everything you need is in that playlist, so take a look whenever you're ready. Okay, let's get into it. The content shared on this channel is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional legal advice. Always consult with a qualified attorney or HR professional for specific guidance tailored to your needs. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe. So here's what happened. Eric Lund, he was a district manager at Rite Aid. He oversaw about 14 to 16 stores in what they call Region 13. That's the greater Fresno area, including cities like Los Baños, Newman, Mariposa, and Oakhurst. Now, if you're not familiar with Rite Aid, they were once one of America's largest pharmacy chains. They were founded in 1962 in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and at its peak, it operated over 4,500 stores nationwide. But in recent years, Rite Aid has really struggled, and today only a fraction of Rite Aid stores remain in business. Hanin Atalla, she first met Eric Lund in the fall of 2017 while finishing pharmacy school. She was doing a 6-week business rotation at Rite Aid, and Eric Lund, he was her assigned preceptor, essentially her professional mentor, and that's how it all began. But that rotation didn't end with a handshake and goodbye. Instead, it ended with a celebratory dinner that included Atalla as the guest of honor, Eric Lund, and his wife. And from there, the relationship continued. By the time Hannah Atalla officially joined Rite Aid as a graduate intern, they were already close friends. They would text, grab lunch, exchange memes, talk about food, exercise, vacations, birthdays, even fashion. They went out socially with their spouses. There were hundreds of messages between them, both personal, lighthearted, and sometimes flirty. Rite Aid would later submit over 500 pages of texts and images between the two of them. This wasn't just a boss and an employee. This was a personal friendship. But then came January 4th, 2019. Atalla was home on the couch with her husband. When her phone lit up, it was a message from Eric Lund. He was drinking with his wine group and staying at a hotel in Modesto. The two of them had been texting earlier that night about work, wine, and clearing out coals. Talia jokingly said she was doing it the Russian way, with vodka. Then, without warning, Lund sent Atalla a live photo, a short video of himself. Solo private time. She immediately turned her phone face down, stunned, and went to the bathroom so her husband wouldn't see. A few minutes later, another text. I'm so drunk right now, followed by another photo. This one also graphic, and the message meant to send to wifey. Tala told him to stop. He replied, "You are right." And that was the end of the exchange. The next morning, Eric Lund apologized by text to Atalla, and she never responded. By Sunday, she called out of work, and by Monday, she blocked his number. And by Thursday, her attorney had already sent a demand letter to Rite Aid. And Rite Aid, they didn't drag their feet. They opened an investigation immediately. They confronted Eric Lund and he admitted it all. And within days, they fired him. They also sent Atalla a letter saying, "You're still active in our system. You're welcome to return. Here's who to call to get back on the schedule." They even offered her access to counseling and support through the company's employee assistance program. But Atalla never returned back. Her attorney had already told the company that she wouldn't, and by the following week, there was still no word from her or her lawyers. And so Rite Aid officially marked her as resigned with the possibility of rehire. Atalla sued for sexual harassment under California's FEHA law, along with retaliation, emotional distress, and constructive termination. But here's the twist: the court dismissed her entire case. Why? Because under FEHA, for an employer to be strictly liable for sexual harassment by a supervisor, the harassment must occur within the scope of that supervisor's job, meaning on duty, connected to work, and using workplace authority. But Eric Lund wasn't on duty. He wasn't using work resources. Our entire communication, including that explicit live photo, took place on personal phones during what the court called personal off-duty relationship. The behavior was inappropriate, even disgusting, but it wasn't considered workplace harassment in the legal sense. And because Rite Aid, they took swift corrective action, so they couldn't be held liable for anything. This case was decided under California's FEHA law. That's the Fair Employment and Housing Act. It's one of the strongest anti-harassment laws in the country. If you want to better understand what FEHA requires from employers and what your rights are as an employee, check out my California harassment prevention training for non-supervisory employees. The video walks through the law in plain English and gives you the tools you need to recognize, report, and protect yourself against harassment at work. You'll find the link in the description below. Here's the thing, this wasn't just a case of a boss randomly harassing his employee. Eric Lund and Hanin Atalla had a personal friendship that started before she ever worked at Rite Aid. They talked about everything: food, vacations, fitness, religion, fashion. They texted constantly. They grabbed lunch, coffee, even had dinner with their spouses. So when that explicit photo came through, the court just didn't look at the message. They looked at the whole relationship. And they decided this wasn't workplace harassment under the law. It was personal misconduct between two friends who happened to work together. And that's what tipped the scale, because if a supervisor harasses someone in the course of their job, the employer can still be held strictly liable. But if the behavior happens off the clock, on personal phones, in the context of a personal friendship, even if it's totally inappropriate, the law may not treat it the same way. This case is a wake-up call. It shows that the law doesn't always offer protection the way you might expect. especially when personal and professional lines get blurred. For employees, it's a reminder be cautious about mixing work with personal relationships, especially where there's a power imbalance. For employers, this case highlights how important it is to respond quickly and document everything. But at its core, this case asks a really tough question. If you're harassed, even by your boss, but it happens off duty on personal time through personal devices, do you still have rights? In Atalla v. Rite Aid, the court's answer was no. If you ever find yourself in a situation like Hanin Atalla, where a trusted supervisor or coworker crossed the line, there are steps you can take to protect yourself. The first thing you will always hear me say on this channel is to document everything. Save every text, every email, every message, every voicemail, or any other inappropriate communication. Write down what happened, when it happened, and who was there. The sooner you document, the stronger your evidence will be. You also need to review your company's harassment policy because most companies, they outline exactly how to report harassment. Knowing that process helps you take the right steps. It's also important to report the harassment. I know this takes a lot of courage, but it is the right thing to do to stand up for yourself. If your supervisor is the harasser, you can go directly to HR or even upper management. Whenever it's possible, make your complaint in writing so that you have a paper trail. You also want to keep work and personal communication separate. If the harassment happens through personal texts or social media, make sure you save those screenshots and back them up. Don't delete evidence, even if it's upsetting to look at. You have the right to ask for a different shift or reassignment or other accommodations to avoid further contact with the harasser while the issue is being resolved. Know your state's rights because in California, FEHA protects employees from harassment even if some of it happens off duty, but it is connected to the workplace. And if your employer doesn't act or if you face retaliation, make sure you consult with an employment lawyer. You may need to file a complaint with the EEOC or the California Civil Rights Department if you're in that state. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Harassment is not just a legal issue, it's an emotional one. Use mental health resources or even an employee assistance program if you need that support. Now, if this story surprised you, I encourage you to watch more real cases like this in my harassment case playlist. If you found this helpful, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. I post real workplace stories, legal insights, and practical advice every week. I'm Harlow Reed, and this is the HR Insider. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.